What is the stupidest thing you've ever seen a religious person call satanic demonic? Buddy Holly was said to make the devil's music by his own home church in Lubbock that he regularly tithed to still, even after making it big. An elderly woman I know was doing her laundry in her apartment building's shared laundry room when two other women who also lived there called her demonic and said she had to have Satan in her because she was doing her laundry on a Sunday. What? Well, when Pokemon first came out when I was a kid they were hating on it because evolution. Then it was Harry Potter because magic. Both equally idiotic. The Pope even said Pokemon was fine and didn't have any harmful moral effects. Yet people still claim it's from the devil. Adorable dragons that my Christian brother-in-law painted and sold at convention. Called it devil worship and were concerned for his well-being. My sister just pointed them 3 vendors down and said, by the way, there's an actual witch you can go talk to, please leave. Best response I've seen yet. My mom insisted Buffy the Vampire Slayer was a satanic show that would let demons in the house because it glorified them, so I wasn't allowed to watch it. This wouldn't have been run-of-the-mill religious nonsense if The Witches of Eastwick wasn't one of her favorite movies. For those of you who haven't seen it, the plot of this movie is basically Jack Nicholson as the devil seducing some witches. We owned it on VHS and she's watched it every few months. I knew a family who wouldn't let their kids watch Disney movies because they had magic in them. Talking animals, witchcraft, etc. Magic and talking animals, just like the Bible LMAO. Writing with your left hand. I naturally started writing with my left hand as a young child and my mom made me fix it. Whenever she saw me writing, she would put the pencil in my right hand until I could no longer use the left one. It wasn't until I was older that I realized she was doing it because she thought left-handedness was associated with the devil. Now I have crappy handwriting. My dad was forced to write with his right when he went to Catholic school. He actually wrote backwards because of it and was almost placed into a special education class. Now he's able to sign his name backwards and upside down, which confuses the heck out of people. Donating plasma. Used to donate plasma in college for extra money and some of my friends did it as well, but then 2 of them stopped because their mom said it was being used for satanic rituals. Ah yes, vile satanic rituals like life-saving medical procedures. If God wanted them to live they wouldn't have been shot. My hair color. I'm a natural redhead. She started screaming at me that it's the sign of Satan and I'm a demon. Police had to be called because she straight up freaked out and started to get violent. Yes, LOL, I've been told cuz we gingers steal souls. Pokemon. When I was a kid, the local church ordered to the parents to bring everything Pokemon related, so they can burn it. It was awful. They take away toys, cards, posters and Gamma Boys of almost every single kid of my school, and then they were forced to go to the church that Sunday to see how everything was burned in front of all. Meanwhile the adults were singing gospels, all because some old woman says that Pokemon was satanic and Pikachu means demon over God. Oof, where do I start? Back in the 90s, we had those little Smurf figures. I loved them and I was starting a collection. But my Catholic mother made me throw them away because her moronic friends convinced her that Smurf stuff were made by Satan and they would come to life at night and kill me. Yep, don't ask me where did those people get all that, but I've met a crap ton of them later and they actually believed this nonsense. Years later my mother finally left all that insanity behind and asked me to forgive her. My brother's Mill, who is an evangelist pastor, made her granddaughter throw away all her Hello Kitty toys because the character has no mouth. Just like some demon from the Bible, I guess. Can't remember the name and found no reference except for one in the Sumerian culture. The thing is that the stupid cat has no mouth, so it had to be a demon, I guess. This is by far the most freaking stupid of all, especially because it's pretty recent. It's the one around a stupid pop band that used to sing a song called a Sarah J. The song said this: a Sarah J jar de J, de jebe tu de jabir cb now the majavi and de bugi and de gidadp, which means literally nothing. It's just the song Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang, but sang by phonetics. I said a hip, hup, the hippie equals a Sarah J jar de J. So, why is it satanic? Because it says a Sarah J. That sound remotely similar to herege, which means heretic in Spanish. Yeep. These people vote. The word lucky. Had a super self-righteous teacher in middle school who said lucky was an evil word because both it and Lucifer start with the same 3 letters, completely ignoring that Lucifer was the name given to him by God when he was the most beautiful angel in heaven, before he betrayed God. A friend of mine who had incredibly conservative Christian parents wasn't allowed to say right LOL. Apparently it stands for Lucifer our Lord. She instead said LML, for laughing my loudest. Cause apparently Lucifer my Lord doesn't work. I grew up in the 80s, so a lot. Let's see. Aside from the usual heavy metal and D&D, He-Man, The Mr. Ed theme song and Rush's 2112 album were some of the dumbest. A horse is a horse, of course, of course. Just about anything and everything that they disliked. I cannot speak for all religious people, but the ones I grew up with could not separate their personal beliefs with what they would religiously dang and glorify. They perfectly demonstrated how each person has their own personal religion that falls loosely within the prescribed boundaries of that religion's specific framework of dogma. Anything. Phosphorus toothpaste, dishwashing gel. My mom washes the dishes with dry mustard. Microwave, invented by Hitler. 5G, yeast bread, also invented by Hitler to kill humanity. TV, barcodes. Oh, I have so many, from the same person. My husband, all of a sudden everything is. Fortune cookie from any place. My depression, anxiety, birthday parties, Christmas party, Santa all of a sudden he doesn't want our toddlers to get gifts from Santa. IDK I might be overreacting. You tell me, and so much more. Oh tattoos but he's literally covered. Run away from all that. What the frick? You are underreacting. Some very religious Catholic lady in my previous neighborhood screamed at kids for dressing in costumes as bugs, witches, Power Rangers and Pokemon characters. She basically saying we're praising the devil and demons. Meanwhile I was handing out extra candies to make up for the woman screaming at the kids. We nicknamed her the Halloween Nut. More like Halloween C. Catfish. I worked at a Christian bookstore, and one of our regular customers was one of those tent revival type preachers. He'd come in and lecture me about which demons lived in which animals. Evidently the spirit in charge of lung cancer lives in catfish. Ads for venom, let there be carnage. I mean, he wasn't entirely wrong, but the guy was being kind of dramatic about how evil and demon inviting it is. Bro chill. It's a movie based on a goofy 90s comic book villain. I was performing a magic show at a church and, afterwards, this woman came up to me and said her son wanted to be a magician but she was unhappy about it because magic is demonic. That's ridiculous. You can do like 95% of magic tricks without the help of demons. Posted on this before, but worth repeating. When my son was younger he and several of his friends got into playing role-playing games, D&D, Blood Bowl, and a couple of others. I helped him build a gaming table and area in our basement and he and his friends would spend hours down there playing. One guy who went to our church pulled me aside one Sunday and informed me that I was endangering my son's soul because I was allowing such satanic behavior. I looked him and I said, Ken, I know where my son is, who he is with, and what he is doing. Can you say the same about your son? He gave me a funny look, walked off, and never mentioned it to me again. By the way, my son grew to be a man any father would be proud of, a nuclear research engineer at a national laboratory, and have provided my wife and I with 2 wonderful grandchildren and a truly awesome daughter-in-law. Frick, yeah. Excellent parenting and an even better response. One time I went to a friend's Sunday service and we were taking communion. There were pieces of bread that were being passed around that you could rip a piece off. I thought it was a little weird but it was a small church, maybe 20 people. I ended up having a sore throat and felt sick a day or 2 after. Told my buddy and his family. What was his mother's response? You will need to pray more. That means that the devil is working in you. Maybe everyone shouldn't be touching the bread. The other day I saw one of Pickett wielding crazies say Jesus came to bring us salvation from the Jews. I guess the moron didn't know Jesus was a Jew. Arguing with people who hide behind a hostile interpretation of religion always smells like 2 kids' imagination fighting. I shot you. No you didn't, I had armor. But my gun shoots armor piercing bullets. But my armor is super duper thick. SMFH. Grade 5 teacher called Fantasia the Mickey Mouse movie witchcraft and the work of the devil. That as well as Harry Potter. The Fantasia one cracked me up the most though. My uncle denied my 6-year-old cousin to watch Pocoyo because he thinks that he is impure. That was about 1 year ago, but I think that if he keeps doing this, she'll grow up to be a Christian rock fan or SMTH. Chronicles of Narnia. C.S. Lewis was an extremely devout Christian, and Aslan dying and coming back in The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe was meant to be a direct allegory for Christ's death and resurrection. It's not even a little bit subtle, but since it's a fantasy story it's automatically considered demonic by some evangelical crazies. Easter. They said it was celebrating the new bunny god. Also they didn't allow Harry Potter. Easter is the goddess of spring and fertility. Seems like the Jack T. Chick publications, sequential art, comics, were a goldmine in this regard. If I recall correctly, Dungeons and Dragons and the Islamic faith were among the targets. I remember those. The church we went to when I was a kid was full of them. When I was a teen and visiting with my grandparents, the whole family was there for Thanksgiving or something. Home. The adults were sitting around chatting and I was asked to do something and to take my cousin, younger but similar in age, to help. When I stood I realized I had to pee, so I nudged my cousin to wait a second while I let nature take its course. My grandma overheard my comment and took my hand, saying with all seriousness and concern, "Mijo, that's the devil trying to stop you from doing what you need to do. He delays you and wants to keep you lazy." Needless to say, I was blown away by this statement that the devil is working his fiendish powers to make me want to pee when I ought to be doing whatever task I had been assigned by my elders. I looked up and around for some help at my family and what to do in this situation. What to say? Nothing. So I put in my most pleasant smile and said, "Okay grandma, but I'll be just a second." She nearly demanded that the task be done without delay. Long story short, I, still believing in an almighty God in heaven, began to think all this is a bit nonsense. I deduced that because I was in a sitting position that the trigger for having to pee was somehow suppressed, and when I stood that trigger was announced and told my brain nature calls. From then on I began to pull apart these silly and needless sayings and ideas and eventually stopped believing. I will say this wasn't the key to the loss of my religion, but it allowed me to see the absurdity to which my family and others can sometimes be led to believe. Meningitis. Parents contacted a priest and ghost hunting team for an exorcism to get rid of the satanic curse, and not one of them thought of seeking medical help. Yes, the baby died. I hope everyone involved went to prison. Being born in the early 90s, Harry Potter was huge. Some kids weren't allowed to take part in the craze, read a single book. Witchcraft LMAO. I wasn't. I didn't read them until I was 24 when my fiance said he couldn't marry someone who hadn't read the books, and then he bought them for me. I'm hooked. It's so great, and I'm really bummed I missed out on all the midnight releases my friends went to when a new book came out. Back in the day, a teen burger combo worked out to a price of $6.66. Had a A&W employee flip out and re-enter my order because of it. Also, my old home phone number started with 666. I had people freak out over my phone number. Like, I specifically requested that number for personal reasons. Eating shrimp. Lady told me it was ungodly, that shrimp are the cockroaches of the sea, and eating them was as nasty as swallowing a man's ejaculation. I was pregnant with extreme and all day long morning sickness. Shrimp was one of the few things my body would accept. Sounds like she had a boring sex life. Rock music, Dungeons and Dragons, yoga, Pokemon, Harry Potter, dinosaurs, Islam, Judaism, Catholicism, the wrong kind of evangelical Christianity, Hinduism, paganism, atheism, video games, MTV, makeup on men, makeup on women, homosexuality, transgender, vegan food, climate science, science in general. Found the fellow Jenxer who grew up during the Satanic Panic. I've heard a Catholic person call Harry Potter a work of Satan because it involved witchcraft. In Catholicism, believing in witchcraft is a sin. My Jehovah's Witness uncle cut a wooden bench in half with a circular saw after his wife, my biological aunt, had her third mental breakdown caused by bipolar disorder. She just decided to stop taking her medication one day, because reasons, and threw herself down like 4 stairs about 2 weeks later. He blamed this bench for some reason, claiming it was full of demons. When my mom pointed out that she had already agreed to purchase it from my aunt, but hadn't picked it up yet, he then drove it 200 kilometers to dump it on my driveway, then drove back. My grandma said keeping dogs is demonic. My parents told her that was too much. My aunt said that if keeping dogs is a demonic thing, keeping babies is the most demonic thing in the world. Teddy Ruxpin. My grandma tried to stomp on mine as a child because in the story he was telling we went to a wizard for guidance on his quest. My mother has bizarre, pseudo-Christian religious beliefs, but once insisted I was listening to blasphemous music because she heard the lyrics "Have you come here to play Jesus to the lepers in your head?" The metaphor was obviously a little complicated, but for those who don't know, it's from one by U2. The West African religion Vodun, also known as Voodoo, older than Christianity, yet tagged as demonic Satanist by ignorant Westerners, and much creative fantasy added to it by people who know nothing about it. People who never heard of Satan are not worshipping Satan, but it makes for good voodoo trinket sales to tourists in New Orleans. I'm half Nigerian and half African American, and the insane disrespectful bulls I grew up hearing preached about my own culture pisses me off till this day. I went to a church where people would dress up in African garb for Black History Month, but any cultural practices those people don't understand is demonic. Not exactly what you asked, but at one point I was arguing with an ex-friend who was quite religious. She eventually just goes, "You use Google like a Bible," and left it at that after I referenced a study I found online. First off, no I don't. I don't worship it, or pray to it. Secondly, what does that even mean? She said it in a smug tone too, like she just won the argument, while I'm just standing there trying to wrap my brain around what she meant. It's a search engine. Google doesn't do these studies. It's a means of finding information. And again, how could I use it as a dang Bible? They are in no way similar. Definitely something a pastor came up with and thought was really clever. Some guy in my local newspaper called Halloween Satanic a few years back. Apparently, cutting pumpkins is a way to summon the devil. I literally missed a decade of Halloween fun in my childhood because of this thinking. Then when I went trick-or-treating again with some friends in high school, I got asked, "Aren't you too old for this?" a number of times. Rest of my friends didn't though. It was odd. I have permanent Halloween decor now. Good stuff. Years ago when I started taking yoga classes, my cousin's extremely religious parents asked her to distance herself from me because practicing yoga is preparing your body to be possessed by the devil. Remember kids, any activity that originated from a different culture is definitely 100% a satanic ritual. I had a friend in elementary school who was not allowed to watch SpongeBob SquarePants because SpongeBob's eyes were big and round like the devil's eyes were described to be in the Bible. Still haven't wrapped my head around that one. LOL Obama. My parents sent me to a private Christian school. They, and the church we would attend, literally thought Obama was the Antichrist, that his presidency was the end of days. Myself, 1998-99. Paraded in front of 200 congregants, declared a disciple of Satan, and warned as a bad influence to all their kids. I couldn't date, had no friends. That sucked so hard. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.